I'm riding in the car with my sister the other day. This was about the middle of last week, maybe. And she's telling me this story about a young man who was wanting to surprise his wife. And I sort of laughed and was like, oh, amateur. And she said, why? Like, what's wrong with surprising your wife? And this sparked a rather interesting conversation explaining my methodologies, if you will, with my sister. When I was done, she was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So stay tuned and I'll tell you what I mean by why surprising your spouse or girlfriend or whoever is an amateur mistake. In fact, I've made a list of a few amateur mistakes that I think young men make. And I want to start with surprises. It's your anniversary coming up. You know it's coming up. She knows it's coming up, but you haven't said anything about what you're going to do. You have this grand plan of surprising her by taking her out to dinner, buying whatever, taking her to some special place, whatever it is. This part doesn't matter. What matters is you think this thing is going to be significant to her and you want to spring it on her on your anniversary. Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have your anniversary arrive, and then you're going to tell her she will indeed be excited. It'll be a great evening. She'll be happy about the thing you gave her, and then that will wane off, and eventually things will go back to normal, and it won't be special anymore. So why is that amateur? Well, for two reasons. One, especially if you're going to be doing something where you're going out to eat, anything that requires preparation, you have handicapped her ability to prepare for this. And this is important to many women, right? She's going to want to choose a special dress. She's going to want to do her hair, her makeup, all these different things. But even if you tell her early in the day and you give her a whole day to prepare, that's probably not enough, but it's okay. Let's just say it is. All right. I'm going to even give you that you gave her enough time to prepare. It's still an amateur mistake. And here's why. Because if you tell her early, for example, don't make it a surprise. You tell her a week in advance, like, babe, our anniversary is coming up. I want to do something amazing. We're going to go out. We're going to do blah, blah, blah. You just tell her everything. Okay. Now, all week, she can prepare. All week, she's going to be up here excited about this thing that her husband is going to do. And every time it comes up, she's going to remember, oh, on Friday, we're going to be going to do this thing. Her friend at work says, hey, you want to go out on Friday? I can't go out on Friday because I got a thing coming up on Friday. And all week, she's going to be excited. And then you still get the bonus of her being excited after. So you've just extended the happy train from just a couple of days to a week and a couple of days. What if you tell her a month in advance? Well, there's a point of diminishing return. You can't tell her too early. But the point that I'm trying to make is don't surprise her. You can make this not only just as enjoyable, you can make it 10 times more satisfying emotionally because that means a lot more to her than you think. For men, obviously, this doesn't apply to everyone. There's no universal rule about men and women. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, in general, for the woman, she's a little bit more in tune with her emotions. And if you can give her that emotional high a little bit earlier and let her ride that wave a little bit longer, the payoff and dividends is going to be much higher. I promise you, it's worth it to tell her in advance. And even if you really want to keep some details secret, that can also work. You can just say, babe, on Friday, we got something special planned. I just want you to be ready. Just know you need to be dressed up. I'm not telling you where we're going. I'm not telling you what we're doing, but just be ready. And that, my friends, is how you do it. That's how you go from being amateur to being a pro. That's how you get the absolute most out of every anniversary, every special occasion. You tell them early and you bring it up as often as you need to. Like, oh, every time she comes around the corner and you see her in the kitchen, like, I can't wait to take you out on Friday. Oh, I'm so excited about showing you this thing. And it starts bubbling up again and all over again. You get the rewards of the thing that you've done. Instead of getting rewarded once, you can get rewarded over and over and over again. Number two, young men choose their spouse or significant other based on beauty. And this to me is by far one of the most detrimental mistakes because certainly we want people that we enjoy looking at, right? If she is hideous, that's going to be a problem. I'm just being real with you fellas. It's mostly men here anyway, though there are a few women that watch. I am telling you, I understand that that can be important to you. She should be attractive. But here's the deal, or attractive to you, because we all like different flavors too. The problem is, beauty is just one attribute that can hide truckloads of pain, misery, and suffering. And some of the most painful, life altering situations can come through the most beautiful face and body you have ever seen in your life. You need to understand that somebody that close to you has access to all the most sensitive things in your life. And you got to be super careful about who you let have that kind of access to you. And I don't just mean your personal space, like she might stab you while you're sleeping. I mean, it could be that too. Or actually, I guess not, because women are more likely to poison you with your food rather than stab you in your sleep. So, happy breakfast or lunch there, fellas. But, but anyway, we're not just talking about like her hurting you physically. I'm talking about the emotional pain and suffering, the financial pain and suffering. She can run up your credit cards. She can cheat on you and she can hurt your heart like never before. You have no idea how painful the results can be when you haven't taken the time to investigate further than how she looks. It's unfortunate to say, but my fellow cohorts in the male variety tend to be driven pretty heavily by appearances that may cause you to ignore warning signs that will definitely be there. I can promise you they are there if you're paying attention. Given the handicap that this can create for men in terms of their ability to just think rationally, I suggest that you be more cautious the more attracted you are to her. So if you feel yourself being especially attracted to this person, then you should be especially cautious about why you want to be with this person, because there are so many other attributes that matter in terms of how she manages her money, how she manages her emotions, how she behaves when she's angry or sad or whatever. All of these things will have a tremendous effect on your life. Now, I'm obviously not saying that every beautiful woman will bring you pain and suffering. That's not what I mean either. Because if you take a serious look at yourself and you realize that you are ignoring warning signs because your body likes her more than your brain, then you need to, you got to walk away, man. Be cautious out there, fellas. If she's beautiful, take a second look and make sure that the beauty isn't the only reason you want to be with her. The third amateur mistake that young men make is they make permanent decisions based on temporary situations. Another way to put this might be to think of it as don't make decisions with long lasting effects based on situations that are temporary. The first thing that comes to mind is anger, because men often have anger issues, and you might just want to fly off the handle and punch someone and end up with a prison record or end up injuring someone over a situation that was only inconvenient for a moment, right? Like maybe they bumped you in line or it was something trivial, or even if it wasn't trivial, even if it was something very serious. But before you escalate this to a level of violence or suffering that can lead to long lasting consequences for you over a situation that you will be out of in just a few moments, and that you, especially when you have a choice to just walk away, it doesn't matter how angry you are, it doesn't matter what's going on. You have to find a way to avoid making those kind of choices that can give you long lasting consequences over temporary situations. Similarly, with something like an affair, I think that's a good example of how being in a temporary situation of temptation can lead you to years and years of pain and suffering, or can destroy your marriage, destroy your relationship with your children, can destroy multiple marriages depending upon the situation. Is that temporary pleasure worth the long lasting effects? Maybe you need to get yourself out of that situation. It could be borrowing money. If you, I don't know, if you have your AC unit goes out, that's like a really expensive repair. It's the middle of the summer, or let's say we have a month left in summer. Most people don't have enough money saved up to just buy an AC unit and have it repaired. So maybe you need to borrow that money. But do you need to borrow it now? You know, if there's a month to go, maybe you can avoid long lasting effects of a high interest rate and payments that will last for years and years, and you pay $20,000 for this air conditioner install instead of 10,000 or whatever because of interest, when maybe you could have purchased some fans and waited a little while. And this may not be the perfect example for you. What I'm trying to get you to think about is how temporary situations can lead to long lasting pain and suffering if you don't think about it. So, one of the first things that I do is I think, how long do the effects of this decision last compared to the effects of why I'm making this choice. And that's usually how I make those choices. I think about, okay, if I'm upset about something, how long am I really going to be upset about this? If I'm going to be over it by the end of the day, there should be no repercussions. There should be no long lasting effects from whatever I do about this thing, right? Because that's ridiculous. If this is something that will hurt you for years and years, or, then maybe more action is required, more long lasting effects need to come into place, right? The most important thing is that you take a minute to think about whether the consequences of your choice match the actual situation. If you have a very temporary situation, it should not lead to years and years of consequences. That's just the simplest way to think about it. And that's your moment to reevaluate whether this choice makes sense. That includes getting married, you know. Getting married is a really long lasting choice. You need to think about, am I letting some temporary situation drive me into this long lasting decision? The last one I want to talk about today is living your life now as if you won't have a tomorrow. And this can be a double edged sword. Statistically, it is likely that you'll live to be about 75, 80 years old if you live in the United States. That number varies a little bit by country. The point I'm trying to make is if you're 25, don't spend your money and throw your life into the trenches as if you're only going to live to be 26 or 27. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy life, but keep in mind, you will be 40 one day, you will be 50 one day, you'll likely be 60 one day, and there's a pretty good chance you'll be 70. 80 years old is getting a little close. The point I'm trying to make is you need to be putting money away. You need to be thinking about your debt. You should be thinking about the fact that your children will grow up and you may want them to go to college. You may not, but you're going to have expenses that increase as your children get older and as you get older. You have to be planning for that. You have to. Don't be an amateur and blow all your money when you're young, and then you still have to try to find the level of work that you were doing at 25 or 30 at the age of 65 or 70. Because that's tough, man. Experience is nice, but you may find it more difficult as you get older to find work. And that is just a fact of life that has always been like that. And that's before we take into account the fact that as you get older, you're going to be moving a little slower. You may have injuries or you may not be able to work at all. You got to be thinking about that 40-year-old version of yourself, the 50-year-old version of yourself. I, today in my 40s, am so grateful that the 20-year-old Jeremy, or really 24-year-old Jeremy-ish, was thinking about 40-year-old Jeremy when I made some of the decisions I made financially. Even things that I struggled to get my wife on board with. We made those choices. Certainly, it took discipline and restraint, really, to put that money aside and focus on our future. But today, I'm seeing the benefits of having done that, and that's made a huge difference. The 40-year-old Jeremy is grateful for the choices that 25-year-old Jeremy made, or 24. And you will be in the same situation. Don't let the fact that it's so far in the future distract you from the fact that it is absolutely coming. So what are you going to do about it? So maybe in a future video, we'll talk more about how I plan for the future being in my mid 40s now. In the meantime, I want you to be thinking about the fact that this is definitely coming and you should be prepared. Now, when I give that kind of advice, I'm not giving it because I'm some sort of financial expert or even like a family counseling expert. I don't think I am. But I have built a great relationship with my children and with my spouse. I'm very happy with the relationship I have with them. And I am simply trying to share with you how I have approached this problem. But your family situation and lifestyle and everything will lead to slightly different decisions that you need to make. I'm just hoping to uh, give you some pieces of the puzzle to work with. All right, gentlemen, we'll talk again soon. Go be a dad.